Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Marist Football Network's pregame show for this week against Georgetown. For Matt, Phil, Amanda, and Rachel, I'm Mike. This week, we have an interview with Coach Jim Parody. We have Fed Selston in studio for an interview and a ton of analysis for this week's game against the Hoyas. Phil, this week, not this week, but the first 3 weeks, the team is 1-2. What is the one thing you could identify with the team so far?
I would say one trend, Mike, if I had to put my finger on, would be a defense that has played some phenomenal football and an offense that perhaps in all facets of Jim Parody's scheme has not developed fully. We've seen elements of an effective passing attack with the sophomore quarterback Chucky Looney, but the rushing attack certainly is lagging behind.
And Phil, just jumping on that QB talk, Chucky Looney gets the start. He is the starter this year as a true sophomore, while senior Tommy Riley starts the season on the bench. So it's a little rough for Tommy Riley after his record-setting year last year to turn the reins over to Chucky Looney, but so far Looney's performed pretty well.
All right, Phil, this week you sat down with Coach Parody. Let's go to that interview right now.
Well, we opened up with a great win against Sacred Heart. In the last 2 weeks, we fell a little bit short in fourth quarter, what I call fourth quarter games. We had possessions in both those games to go ahead and win the football game or take the lead in the fourth quarter. We're unable to do that, and so we know that we're close, a little bit frustrated in the fact that we have not gotten the wins that we felt that we were right there with. On the defensive side, I think as you look at our defensive line, I think our captain, David Torriello, has played very well for us, along with Terrence Fade, who's had a very much an impact year for us in the first 3 weeks. At the linebacker position, Mike Hagerman has been tremendous for us. A very physical player. Has made a lot of plays and has disrupted the backfield quite a bit. And then the secondary, I think you look at Jaquan Bryant over there on the defensives. People have tried to stay away from him throwing the ball, but when they have gone at him, he has 2 interceptions on the year. So, and then on the offensive side, I think that at the receiver position, Mike Rios and Kevin Fitzpatrick have been very solid so far this year. And our offensive line has started to mature, but I think they really came together in the Dayton game and pass protected very well. And then in a running back, Ryan Dennebiel has been a standout at the running back position. Well, you obviously always want to win the football games, but you know that you can experiment a little bit more. Maybe take a player or two that you wouldn't normally take, and kind of take a look at them and see if they can fit the system as we get into the league play. And it allows you. Both those games were, even though they were on the road, they were in fact day travel for us, so we were able to take 64, 65 guys on each of those trips. So we're able to kind of look out and get a few extra guys on the bus and then into the games. I think that our captains, Torriello, Dennebiel, and Kicklighter, have been excellent in putting an attitude out for this football team that, you know, we're going to compete for a championship this year. And, you know, the opening game against Dayton in our conference schedule did not turn out like we wanted to, but we know there's eight conference games. And so they're a very hungry group. They practice very well, and they're very motivated. So that, as a coach, is very nice to go out on the practice field every day and know that the group is that way. And we had a couple guys in that first game this week as we traveled. We traveled actually 10 freshmen, and I believe 7 or 8 of them got into the football game. And you could see when they came off the field the first time after being out there, they were like, "Ooh, this is a little bit different than what I've been experiencing." And, you know, hopefully they'll get used to the speed of it, and I know they will. It's just there's nothing that can simulate it other than they got to be on the field. In the last 4 years, the home team has won. Hopefully that'll continue this year in the rotation of the series. They are more talented than they have been in the last 3 or 4 years. Coach Kelly's continued to build that program down there, and so we know we're going to have our hands full as they come in here. They'll be physically, I think, will be a very good matchup. Speed-wise, there'll be a couple positions I think they will be a little bit better than us, and a couple positions we'll be a little bit better than them on. You know, we have 40 freshmen on this team that, you know, we practice in the facility every single day, but like you said, all they see it is an empty stadium every single day. And so hopefully the students will come out and fill the stands, and the community will come out, and it's homecoming. So should be a great crowd there and a great atmosphere for them to be in their home environment for the first time. And the 3 away games that we've played in some pretty decent environments already. But it'll be always nice to, when we make the good plays, to hear the cheers instead of the boos that we've heard in the last few weeks of being on the road.
Phil, thank you for that interview. We would now like to welcome to the program junior starting offensive lineman Fed Selston. Fed, you guys have been on the road for 3 weeks. You're finally coming back to Tenny Stadium. How excited is the team to be coming back to Poughkeepsie?
Well, before I start, I'd like to thank you guys for having me.
Definitely.
Well, the team is very excited to be back. it's our house. We got to defend it, you know. Even though we're coming off of a 2-game losing streak, I feel like things are about to pick up from here. So yeah.
How about for the young guys, Fed? I mean, you're 2 years removed from your freshman season, especially with this big class of almost 40 new players. They've never seen Teddy Stadium filled. They've only seen a lot of empty seats every day from 3:30 to 6:30. Do you think they're getting excited to see 3,000 plus fans there?
Yeah, everybody's pumped, especially the young guys. They wanna yesterday's practice. Everybody's been practice has been amazing. Like all the young guys are stepping up, so they want a chance to play in front of Marist, in front of everybody at Marist and their family. So yeah.
What went through your mind when you had that first time stepping on Tenny Stadium? I mean, this was you were repping the red for the very first time. What was going through your mind?
Honestly, I don't really remember. I don't know. I'm always nervous before a football game, so I guess that's all I can really say. I was just nervous. I was excited. I didn't, I wanted to be perfect that day. So yeah.
Now that you are a junior, last year you were the only sophomore on an offensive line full of freshmen. Do you feel that leadership role, now that you are a junior and you can you've been there before and you can tell them, just take it one play at a time, you've been there, so you can just pass along what you know to the other guys?
Yeah, definitely. I feel that leadership role. I try to make sure everybody's calm, cool, and collective, even if they mess up one play and everything. Tell them brush it off, and look forward to the next play. Let's keep them moving. So.
If there's one thing that you could tell us, what will surprise us this upcoming week against Georgetown? As Matt mentioned, this is a big upgrade this season for the O-line, but yet the run game really hasn't exploded. What will surprise us this upcoming weekend?
A new formation, new plays. So yeah, look forward to that. Bigger push on the O-line. So yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
Now, talking about the O-line, getting a little bit more into it, you talk about, there's a lot of chemistry between guys on the O-line.
Mm-hmm.
You're down in the trenches. You don't get the credit that you deserve a lot of the time.
That's true.
How is it different this year with a more veteran line than from that very inexperienced line last year?
Well, the main difference is that everybody has become more football smart, so everybody's recognizing different fronts or the way a man is lined up in front of them, so they know how to react. So, yeah, that's really the main difference right there. And there aren't really that much mental mistakes since everybody has already, been through it. We already been freshmen, now we're upperclassmen, so, yeah.
What's the mentality of the whole offensive unit? I'm just curious. Chatting with a lot of players, they've mentioned to me Cal Cagney banged up with a knee, Kevin Fitzpatrick, hampered with a hand injury. Obviously, Mike Rios. When you have guys that are unable to play or play in limited capacities, what's the offensive mentality about? Is it a next man up sort of thing?
Well, as an offensive lineman, I can honestly say we play hurt all the time. All the time. I'm not taking any shots at anybody. They have serious injuries, But as an offensive lineman, we're always in the trenches, always fighting. So yeah, I'm always hurt. So yeah, we just have to step up and play. It's important. The offensive line is one of the most important, aspects, one of the most important units on the field, I would say. So yeah, there isn't really that much sitting out to do.
And then almost sort of along with that football mentality, you're playing hurt. Is that something you see all across the league? Like you'll see guys wrapped up during the game and you go up against them, so that's almost a well-known fact that everyone plays hurt. And then, out of curiosity, do you go after guys and you see someone hurt, you try to give them that little extra shove?
Nah, me, I don't. I'm a really respectable player, I don't like to do all that extra stuff. But yeah, seeing another player lined up against you and they're somewhat hurt, but you don't really think about that because when game time comes, the adrenaline is pumping, so you don't feel any injuries until after. So yeah, so technically everybody's kind of 100%. So yeah.
I have to ask you about this defensive line. I mean, this is always a very strong unit for the Red Foxes. And what's it like in practice coming up against, on your side, I guess, in theory, could Terrence Fede and David Torriello close in on you at once if they're trying to hit that gap? What's that like?
In my opinion, I feel as if we have the best defensive line in the entire league. So, blocking these guys, nobody compares to them. They make us better every day, and I wouldn't say it's scary. I'm not gonna give them that much credit. but it's really fun and competitive, you know. So yeah, they get me better, I get them better.
Sure. All right, Fed, thanks a lot for being on the show, and we're going to take a break right now, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Marist Football Network. Let's send it over to Amanda to talk about the keys to this weekend's game against Georgetown.
Thanks, guys. I'm Amanda with this week's breakdown. We'll be seeing some fresh faces catching passes this week due to injuries in the receiving corps. Kevin Fitzpatrick is hampered with that hand injury, and Michael Rios will be out indefinitely with his sore hamstring. So expect sophomore Armani Martin and junior Bart Lenahan to step up against the Hoyas. They've been around for a few years. They should know this offense by now, and they should be ready to pick apart the Georgetown defense that gave up 280 passing yards last week. We have the Marist defense facing off against the Georgetown offense, and I'm giving the Marist Red Foxes 2 thumbs up in this matchup. The defense will do its best to keep the score low and the Hoyas frustrated, but ultimately, this game is going to come down to ball control. If the Red Foxes can get a lead, we may see a change in strategy this week. Marist has 674 passing yards this season, but only 159 rushing yards, so look for some more balanced stats this week. Don't think that Chucky Looney is getting too comfortable in that driver's seat. Although the sophomore got the nod, the battle isn't over for the starting quarterback position. Tommy Riley, in his final year as a Red Fox, is ready to battle. In fact, all 6 quarterbacks took reps this week in practice. That's very unusual, and it tells me that this quarterback position is up for grabs. You heard Coach Parody say earlier how nice it'll be to play at home and hear some cheers instead of jeers. Well, that's because Marist is coming off of 2 tough road losses, and they would love to even out their record at 2-2 in front of a home crowd. However, the Hoyas are coming off a really tough loss at Yale. They're ready to get their own check under the win column. So the Red Foxes are going to have their hands full as they take on the Georgetown Hoyas, and they'll be looking forward to next week against the Jacksonville University Dolphins. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Amanda. All right, guys, let's talk some more about the keys to the game this weekend against Georgetown. Matt, let's touch on this quickly, the quarterbacks. It's kind of been a scramble last year and this year. What do you see going on Saturday?
Well, Amanda touched on it a little bit in her keys to the game. We also mentioned it very briefly in the intro. But, you know, Chucky Looney, it's his job right now. He's the starting quarterback as the senior Tommy Riley doesn't get the start because Looney has played so well throughout the beginning of this year. But again, as Amanda mentioned, 6 QBs got reps in practice this week. Pretty unusual. My guess is that Looney still gets the nod. Looney was the first true freshman to ever play for Jim Parody in his tenure last year. So I think Parody's a little partial to Looney. And basically, based on his stats, he's earned the job. That's his job until he shows that it's his to lose.
Phil, let me ask you a question. No matter who's playing quarterback on Saturday, the wide receiver corps is having huge problems right now. You have information about Rios, who's one of their star wide receivers. What can you tell us about what's going on in that department?
Well, I'm definitely going to touch on that, but just quickly about the quarterbacks, if I may, as well. What I find so interesting in college football is Georgetown, for instance, this weekend, another FCS team that competes in the Patriot League, they use 2 quarterbacks as well. They have 1 runner and 1 passer. Just as last season, we've seen Coach Parody use Riley and Looney in the same game. So it's not out of the question for one of them struggles for the other to replace him. And as far as the receiving corps, yes, certainly some of their bigger names have been hampered by injuries. Now, that being said, I don't think that a production is going to be 0. I think you take a look at a player like Bart Lenahan, who's an Ohio native, made his return up when Marist when Marist went to Dayton last week. He caught 4 balls for over 50 yards. I think there are players that will step up and certainly make catches here because the Red Foxes are a very quick team. They're not the biggest, but they are very, very quick, and I think they're always finding ways to get open, no matter who the personnel happens to be.
Well, Phil, you say the Red Foxes are quick, and we had Fed in here earlier talking about the offensive line. How much is the running game going to have to step up this weekend to make up for the wide receiver corps?
I would love to see them get over this 60-yard sort of benchmark that they've made for themselves. At least that's how I feel looking at the stat sheet every week and even last year. They can't seem to get over the hump of that number. The O-line is really beefed up this year. There's no question about that. It's no longer 4 freshmen and 1 sophomore protecting the quarterback and opening holes. I would look for them to try and do a nice job of exploiting Georgetown. This is sort of a matchup for Marist I feel like can be a good one. They're a straight ahead, very simple sort of vanilla Patriot League team. They don't do anything that's extremely intricate, unlike some of the offenses we see in the PFL. I think this could really be a good matchup for Marist.
I agree with you, and the thing is that the offense has been very good behind Chucky Looney. The passing game has been very strong, so you would think that would open up the running game a little bit more, especially with, as you mentioned, Phil, that beefed up offensive line, but we haven't seen it. You mentioned Georgetown basically just a straight ahead defensive team, so this is a game that Marist has to take advantage of that weaker defense, have Looney come into his own in that quarterback position and open up that running game and sort of get some momentum on the ground.
Do you think teams are now going to be concerned more about our passing game than the running game because the running game has been struggling so much? So this might be a good opportunity for the running game to just take off this week?
I would say so. Georgetown is a better passing defensive team, is a better rushing defensive team than a passing defensive team. So I think that they can key in a little bit more on the passing game, knowing that our running game isn't that great and their rushing defense is a little bit better.
So hopefully Georgetown is more concerned with our passing game in practice this week. Now let's move to the other side of the ball. Defense. Defense has been outstanding this year. My favorite stat is that they have 8 sacks so far. They had 2 last year, so I see considerable improvement in that department. Phil, what has stood out for you for the defense this year?
I think that the play of the entire unit has been so phenomenal. This is a younger unit than we've seen in the past 2 seasons, and what stood out to me, I guess I could say, was you take a look at two players rather, J.J. Van Amen and Rory Foley, that played in the secondary for the Red Foxes, but also sort of a hybrid linebacker position as well. Foley made 103 tackles last year with Achilles tendonitis. That tells me that, I mean, it speaks a lot to his character, of course, but it tells me that one player, I think, was doing way too much. And this year we're seeing a lot of players make tackles as well, getting to the ball. The D-line is beefed up as well. Having Terrence Fede, who was not with the team last fall due to a suspension, back really helps them. I think everyone needs to be commended.
And I'd agree with you. Both the defensive, the linebackers, and the secondary, they're all doing their job. And that's evidenced by the strong pass defense and the strong rush defense. Neither one is really giving up a lot. Marist only gives up 96 rushing yards a game. They give up just 200 passing yards a game, which is very, very strong. And that just shows that they are doing their job. The Marist offense, as we mentioned, needs to step it up. But as a unit, the defense is doing exactly what they need to do to keep us in the ballgame.
Phil, what part of Georgetown's offense do you think our defense needs to just narrow in on for Saturday?
I think the change, and if we see them come out on Saturday using the one passing and then one rushing quarterback, I think that can really throw a defense off. But what has to be in Marist's favor is the mobility of the unit that they have. And, you know, the secondary coach, Larry Riley, is big on having personnel that can change in and out quickly. We see a lot of different players get reps, which I think not only keeps everyone fresh, keeps their legs from getting excessively tired, but it keeps everyone aware of what's going on. So I think for Georgetown, you know, we've seen Marist play Patriot League teams before. They execute well, but on the same token, it's a very basic. The quarterback stares down the wide receiver that they're intending to. I mean, this is not the Jacksonville Dolphins offense, which Marist has to wait another weekend to worry about. But where you'll see receivers in motion, you'll have 5 receiver sets, and the quarterback just doing some absolutely crazy things.
Right.
Everything will be in front of the Red Fox this week, and last year it was a 14-7 game. I think it'll be a close one as well.
Coach Parody said the same. Mm-hmm. Matt, your thoughts on what they need to narrow in on this weekend?
I think it has to be the rushing game. Georgetown rushes for about 135 yards per game. Marist has that good rush defense, so if they can limit that strong Georgetown rushing game, then that would be very helpful because Georgetown doesn't throw the ball all that well. And then especially in the red zone, if Marist can force Georgetown to kick and keep them out of the end zone, obviously it allows less points, but that becomes very important because Georgetown kicking only 2 for 5 on field goals on the year, so it's a little bit of a rough patch. So making sure that they stay out of the end zone will be big just for momentum and, of course, the points at the end of the game.
Of course. Guys, just some final thoughts on this weekend's game against the Hoyas.
I think it's crucial for the Red Foxes to come home, first of all. As we mentioned, they've opened up the season through the first 3 weeks with a 1-2 mark. Now they get the opportunity to play with a tremendous freshman class, about 40 players in front of what should be Tenney Stadium at full capacity. I'm very excited to see how this team will perform at home. It's not the easiest thing to always go on a bus for 4 hours to Pennsylvania, have to play Bucknell and feel flat, for instance, then fly out to, you know, take on what's already a dominant Dayton team and have to compete with them. I think this defensive unit is excellent. I would love to see the offense really take this week and put the chip on their shoulder and have a great performance.
Absolutely. I think it is alumni weekend as well, so there should be a packed house, the first home game of the year. And this game is important from a momentum standpoint as well. You mentioned Jacksonville coming into town next week, so if we can snap this 2-game losing streak, get a little bit of momentum for that intricate Jacksonville offense next week, it goes a long way. And of course, it does set us back to the 2-2, 500 benchmark.
Do you guys know what the best part of Saturday's game is going to be? We're going to be there. We're going to be fieldside, previewing the game an hour before kickoff. That's going to do it for our pregame show. My name is Mike Quinn, Phil Torino, Matt Suter, Amanda, Rachel, and follow us on Twitter at MaristFN. We are on Facebook, and go to our website, www.maristfootballnetwork.com. We'll see you at the game on Saturday.